the Bible's age-old problem. Are we supposed to believe these people lived for centuries? The Bible's portrayal of figures living for hundreds or even thousands of years isn't just an issue of stretching the truth. It's a blatant contradiction to everything we know about biology and human life. If the Bible presents these extreme lifespans as literal, then it demands we completely abandon modern science and reason. But if they are symbolic, why is the Bible so adamantly presenting them as fact? Let's look at these absurd claims in detail and question their validity. Methuselah, 969 years, Genesis 5:27. Methuselah is said to have lived 969 years, the longest lifespan in the Bible. Can anyone honestly believe that a human being lived for nearly a millennium? This is biologically impossible. The human body simply does not have the capacity to sustain life for such an extended period. To claim that Methuselah lived for 969 years is either a fantasy or a deliberate exaggeration. If this account were true, why haven't we seen any evidence of similarly long lives in modern times? Why is it that no one lives beyond 120 years today, let alone 969? Adam, 930 years, Genesis 5:5. According to the Bible, Adam, the first man created by God, lived for 930 years. Let that sink in. 930 years. Can we really accept that? Forget about the fact that humans today can't even imagine living for such a period. Why would God create a man who lived for 930 years only for people today to be limited to less than a century? Was God's creation flawed, or was this just a convenient myth? This type of age isn't just improbable, it's impossible, and yet this story is presented as a fundamental truth by biblical Christianity. Noah, 950 years, Genesis 9:29. Noah, the man who survived the Great Flood and repopulated the earth, is said to have lived 950 years. But here's the kicker. How do we reconcile this claim with modern understanding? Could anyone have survived a flood, lived for nearly a millennium afterward, and still managed to procreate and build an ark? It's clear that this is more than just a tall tale. This is a story that defies every law of biology and physics. Could we seriously believe that Noah lived for nearly 1,000 years? Or is this just another fantastical fabrication? Seth, Enosh, Kenan, and the rest. Over 900 years each, Genesis 5. The biblical list goes on. Seth lived 912 years, Enosh 905 years, Kenan 910 years. Is there any reason we should take these ages seriously? What's the explanation for people living so long while humanity today can barely reach 100 years without medical intervention? These figures aren't just improbably high, they're laughable. Why do we still treat these accounts as authoritative when they fly in the face of everything science has taught us about aging? Enoch, 365 years, Genesis 5:23. Enoch supposedly lived for 365 years and then was taken by God, skipping death altogether. Really? Let's pause and think about this for a moment. A man doesn't die, but is taken by God. What does that even mean? In what universe can we accept that a human being didn't experience death? This exception only adds to the absurdity of the claims. Is this some kind of divine loophole or just another myth to explain away death and the natural human experience? Lamech, 777 years, Genesis 5:31. Lamech, the father of Noah, is said to have lived 777 years. This isn't just improbable, it's impossible. Why should we take such a story seriously when every piece of modern evidence points to the fact that humans cannot live even close to these ages? These numbers don't make sense biologically, and they only serve to undermine the Bible's credibility as a historical document. Shem, 600 years, Genesis 11:10-11. Shem, Noah's son, is supposed to have lived for 600 years. After surviving a catastrophic flood, he goes on to live centuries longer. This notion borders on the absurd. A 600-year-old man? It's hard to even wrap our heads around the idea, and why should we? If this were true, it would be the most well-documented phenomenon in human history. Instead, it's just another unsupported biblical claim that flies in the face of reality. Arphaxad, Eber, and Terah. Ages far beyond possible, Genesis 11. Arphaxad lived 438 years, Eber lived 464 years, and Terah lived to 205 years. Each of these lifespans is still far beyond the biological limits of human life. These ages, which seem to have no basis in reality, continue to be passed down as truth in religious circles. But why are we still expected to believe in these outlandish figures? The unanswered questions: biological impossibility. How is it even conceivable that humans could live for hundreds of years? The human body is genetically and biologically limited, and there's no scientific explanation that would support the idea of people living to 900 or even 1,000 years. Are we supposed to ignore this and just accept it because it's written in an ancient text, literal or symbolic? If these ages are meant to be symbolic, why present them as literal truth? The Bible consistently presents these ages as factual. If they were only meant to convey a deeper meaning, why wouldn't the authors clarify that? Is this just sloppy storytelling or a deliberate attempt to mislead readers? Historical evidence. Why is there no external evidence, no records, no archaeological findings supporting these absurdly long lifespans? Surely, if such extraordinary people had existed, their extraordinary ages would have left a mark on the world's history, and not just in the pages of a religious book. Modern relevance. In today's world, with all our technological advancements and health knowledge, no human can live beyond 120 years. So why should we believe that these ancient figures lived for centuries longer? Isn't it time to question the validity of these accounts, especially when they contradict everything we know about human life? These extreme ages aren't just an oddity. They're a glaring contradiction that forces us to ask difficult questions about the Bible's credibility. Are we really supposed to accept these fantastical lifespans as truth, or is this just another example of the Bible's manipulation of historical facts? How many more absurd claims are we willing to swallow before we start questioning the biblical narrative? This is a topic that should make anyone pause and reconsider the foundation of biblical Christianity. These exaggerated ages force us to confront the question: if the Bible can get something so fundamentally wrong, what else in its teachings can we trust?